Okay, so James asked me to speak about developers in Nordics, and I don't know anything about Nordics, so I'm only speaking about Finnish developers, and kind of why they are succeeding in some things. But Finns, But Finns and Nordic people in general being quite modest, I'm having a hard time figuring out, are they actually succeeding, or if they are succeeding, why? So it was a mystery, and it was a bit hard to actually come up with the things. And now Patrick actually pointed out about all the kind of good sides why Finns have been successful in some things. So it's going to be interesting to follow up that. So who am I? I'm a developer, at least I want to think myself as a developer. My team thinks me as a dreamer who has totally unrealistic expectations, so I always kind of measure up things that, hey, it cannot be that hard to do this thing. I could go that in 1 week or something, and then team assess that it's not just possible. But what I have been doing for the past 15 years or so that's the overnight part of the James intro, is building web components for other developers so that they can build apps that mostly for the enterprise space, mostly for kind of building rich apps that run on web and mobile devices. And over the time, this actually has become from being a type of hobby to some kind of business. So it's an open source business. All of our kind of sales channels, they go through the developers. They go bottom up through open source channel. And I guess that's the reason why James asked me to think about why Finns know something about the development. So I was thinking I should kind of define why Finns can innovate. And if you ask a politician why Finns innovate, they always come up with this innovation system thing. And I guess you all recognize it's kind of oxymoron in a way that you cannot really kind of see that innovation could be a system. So instead I thought that maybe there are virtues, some kind of specific to Finns. And fortunately Patrick was pretty positive about these things. I see the virtues kind of in a bit more critical manner. I think these are the key virtues for Finns. So ignorance, that's a really important one. Inefficiency, shyness, and stubbornness. So these are the key values why Finns can do development. So let's start with the first one, ignorance. How do you solve a big problem? Anyone? Yeah, there is ways and ways. Now I moved from Finland to Silicon Valley, and they have this way of kind of putting a lot of money into that. So if they want to build a website, it costs $2 billion. My experience was different. I was kind of part of this startup 15 years ago or so, and the CEO was asking me that, hey Joonas, could we build kind of electronic prescription system? And I was asking, well, what's a prescription and how you actually are using prescriptions and who is writing them. And it took like 15 minutes to assess that. It shouldn't take more than 5 days or at most 7. So it took actually 2 weeks, and we started shipping prescriptions electronically, but the startup went haywire anyway. So. And later on, Finns actually, they built a prescription system in Finland. It cost 80 million euros, so they should have used ours. But I think that the key is in solving a hard problem is not knowing that it's a hard problem. So ignorance is a bliss over here. So I think this is a kind of key example of that. Who have seen this message? Most of the guys. So this is what Linus posted on Usenet for Linux. And he's saying something like that, I'm working on this free project and for writing an operating system. It won't be big and professional. What happened? So it's kind of largest and most professional operating system in the world, in some sense. It won't be portable. It's probably the most portable operating system. And it won't support too much hardware, only 80 hard drives. And it probably supports everything out there. But I think if he would have thought that what's coming out of this it would kind of scare him away a bit. What I think then, and what I think most reasonable people think, is that when you try to solve a problem, you should ask experts. You should find somebody who knows really well and ask his opinion about it before you try to solve it. This is not what Finns think. I mean, it's a strange thought to a Finn that somebody would be more expert in something than I would be. So why would it be? I mean, in Finland we have really strong case for equality. It's really hard to say that that guy would be a bit more proficient in something or anything than that other guy. And if everybody is basically equal, there are no experts at all. So maybe we should just ignore asking anybody and go solving a problem. Inefficiency. So what's efficiency? I guess inefficiency would be wasting time somehow. And if you turn that into kind of business terms, inefficiency would be having zero expectations for the return for investing your time, right? So what's the kind of primary case for wasting a lot of time? That's my working room in the University of Turku when I was writing my PhD thesis back in the days. And it was a wonderful experience. I got paid 1,500 euros a month for doing basically nothing. I mean, I had a goal that I should be writing this PhD thesis eventually, but I had like 5 years to do it, and nobody was watching after me, and I didn't know what I was writing about because there were no experts in that field in Finland. So, and being a Finn, I didn't ask anybody, so I just So I wrote something, but I guess I spent most of my days in kind of tinkering with other stuff. And I think this is actually a wonderful thing in Finland. That it's really important that we have inefficient universities. There are a lot of people who have a lot of time in their hands, and then they can start doing things. Especially because you get paid 1,500 a month, you don't have too much money to actually invest in things. You might want to have like nice operating system. And of course, if you don't have money to buy it, like Solaris was quite expensive back in the days, you go out and write it because you don't ask anybody whether that's a hard problem or not. Or if you need an operating system, maybe you just go out and write something. Or sometimes it's not about money. If you need a kind of working telnet, what do? You go out and write SSH. So these are kind of problems that I think that if there wouldn't be too much extra time, you wouldn't actually start solving these problems. So how would you actually kind of leverage this? What we had at Vaadin, we had a kind of brainstorming session, how could we innovate in the company? And it actually, Monty was actually part of the board back in the days, and we had this board meeting on kind of brainstorming what are we going to do about it. And we ended up starting something we called Community Friday. So we decided that everybody can spend 10% of their time in the company doing anything that they want to, as long as they kind of assess themselves that it kind of contributes to the Vaadin community. And it was an interesting discussion in the boardroom, kind of having these opinions of not spending anything to this kind of random stuff, and arguments for actually spending like half of the time doing nothing. Of course, we didn't have too much fun, so it's kind of spending half of the time doing some random stuff that we didn't know if something comes out of that, it wasn't an option. But actually that kind of turned out to work pretty well. So people started building stuff that we didn't know about. They put these in the drawers, and in, I think, 2010 or so, we kind of found out that there is a lot of unreleased stuff, because releasing is really kind of hard and boring. So we kind of asked people, let's release all of these small add-ons to Vaadin, and we released a Vaadin directory with 50 plugins to Vaadin, and it kind of grew to 500. And really smart companies are doing this. Google is still having this 20% time around, and things like Gmail has come out of that. Third, shyness. Or I guess it's kind of nice way of saying that Finns cannot communicate. I mean, if you should kind of show something or tell something, Finns always choose to show something because they don't want to tell anything. So why is that? Why Finns don't want to tell anything or kind of say anything aloud? They can't. I mean, have you heard this guy? So in Finland, but he's a driver, so he shouldn't be able to communicate. I mean, you should take somebody, so kind of as a metric, the guy who should be able to communicate best in Finland should be probably working in media industry, right? And the largest media corporation in Finland is Sanoma, and I guess the best communicator should be the kind of heads of the company. This is embarrassing, sorry. So I don't know if you have seen this. And this is for real, actually.
The year 2008 has been good to us. However, as we know, the current situation is quite demanding and the future will pose real challenges for us.
Our group has a solid base which will carry us through the turbulence. Sanoma is now better prepared than ever to face challenges, which also creates great opportunities.
We would like to thank you very warmly for the year 2008. Good people are the key to the success of our company.
We wish you and your family Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
So why this is a good thing? The good thing is that if Finns don't communicate, they try to kind of find ways to kind of go around the communication. For the devs, it means that they just say patches welcome. They don't want to discuss about it. They just want to have patches sent over, and that's really efficient. I mean, who have kind of heard somebody saying patches welcome? Who have been saying that a lot? Yeah, it's, I mean, Finns, they are quite frank and say directly what they mean. So they don't understand it might be a bit rude to say it. But that kind of developed in the good direction. I mean, Git is probably the best example on how you can communicate with larger group of people through patches, sending code over. And it kind of somehow turned to GitHub over the time, and people started sending pull requests over the time. So they can fully avoid communications and instead send pull requests over and can collaborate really, really efficiently without communicating directly. And this is actually really, really good basis for open source community. Of course, sometimes you have to communicate directly. Git was developed by this guy, again, of course. And sometimes you have to kind of put your suit on and be really polite to everybody and go have a conference. And if you have this kind of hard relationship with companies like NVIDIA, you might go and kind of speak nicely to them. And I mean, it's a... But when Finns communicate, they're actually quite clear in what they mean. So the last point, stubbornness, how this is a kind of virtue. Väinö Linna wrote a book called Under the North Star, and it begins with a famous phrase. In the beginning there was a Bok, Matok and Jussi. And I think Finns, they want to have fully equal society, so there are no stars, there are no idols. But there's an exception. Everybody in the Finland, they think this Jussi is their idol, all men over there. And they kind of see that this is the guy who just has some sisu and goes through everything or anything. And it's a one kind of thing that Finns hold really high in their minds. So with this, it's pretty hard to actually follow these startup rules, like fail fast. if you have a lot of sisu, you never fail fast. You are really, really slow to fail. Like us, we have been using 15 years already, and we should have quit like in 6 months and kind of notice that it's a bad idea. But then we kind of keep on and keep on and keep on. And if you kind of feel that it's a bad idea, of course you can also pivot. And with a lot of sisu, you never pivot. You just kind of stay put. So in a way, what you should do, you should kind of hit your head to the wall and kind of keep doing that. And actually, this picture is not taken of Finn. I just stole the picture from Google image search, but I'm pretty certain that it's not the Finn. Do you know why? No. That's a good kind of hint. But there is if you look really, really closely in the picture, right over there, there's a reason why he's not the Finn. Exactly. So Finns, they kind of keep hitting their head long time to the same spot in the wall, and there is going to be a red spot, and it turns to brown spot. But the good thing, eventually the wall will kind of collapse, and you go through the wall, and that's why Finns succeed. So I guess takeaway from this is that ignorance is a bliss, and you should actually embrace that. I'm serious about it. It's good that you just go and do something without doing any research. Be frank and clear, that helps. And wasting time leaves some space for innovation, so please waste some time. Thank you.